Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private Facebook community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, then definitely come check us out. We definitely love to have you. That community was put together specifically for coaches, consultants, and service providers who are serious about getting them to that 6 and that 7-figure level. So if that's you, definitely come check us out. And today, I want to introduce you to one of the members of our community, Rosalind Palmer. Welcome, Rosalind.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So, hey, let's get started. So tell myself and the rest of the community, what is it that you do?
So I'm a transformational therapist and coach. I'm a advanced rapid transformational therapist, RTT, and clinical hypnotherapist, and an NLP based or trained coach. I'm also an author, a broadcaster, podcaster, soon to be a writer. Yes, I'm a communicator because my background before I trained in therapy and coaching 5 years ago is marketing and PR.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. Okay, good. So what made you make the transition into coaching from marketing and PR?
So for me, it was a natural transition because when I ran my PR company in the 90s in London, and it was an award-winning PR company, a lot of my clients were the who's who of the personal development world at the time. People you might have heard of, like Tony Robbins and Edward de Bono and Brandon Bays and Robert Holden. And so I was their PR rep in England. And to be good at being a PR representative and spokesperson, you really need to understand what your clients do. So I went through the whole of Mastery University in the early mid-90s. I then trained with Richard Bandler in NLP. I trained in hypnotherapy with Paul McKenna. I met Marissa Peer at that time on a Tony Robbins course. I even went to her as a client. So I had this background in NLP, in coaching, in personal development, really in some of its very formative years. So I was very immersed in that world, but I wasn't a coach or a therapist myself. I was a PR representative and a marketeer. I thought I'd retired at 40 as a millionairess, and I went to live in the Bahamas for 5 years, and then my life imploded. And to cut a very long story short, after financial loss, cancer, divorce, then the loss of my mother, my father had a stroke, all these things happened in a really short period of time, lost my house, everything. So everything, I thought I'd got all the trophies on the shelf, and I was like this amazing business person, self-made, grocer's daughter. I didn't come from the right side of the tracks. I went to a huge public school, absolutely pulled myself up through my bootstraps, was like, yay, 40, I've made it. And then it all came crashing down. And so I went back to what I knew, which was marketing, and I worked for a training and development company, and they had their own proprietorial thinking system. So again, I get shoved into this world. And then I was head of marketing and communications for an international charity. And I was really getting my heart broken for marginalized people who were suffering, you know, and I went through a lot of challenging mental health issues myself. I'd had a lot of therapy, a lot of help. I'd been on antidepressants. I'd had some really not great behaviors back in the day when I was super stressed. So I really knew the value of coaching. I knew the value of therapy. And just as my life went again, and I went through a second divorce, and I was absolutely having one of those, what now, God? Where am I going now? Why are all these things happening to me? Marissa Peer, literally, an email dropped into my inbox saying, I'm training my very first intake of people in this new therapy, rapid transformational therapy. I think you'd make a great therapist. Please join me. So it was like the universe, synchronicity, it brought me to that point. And I just thought, yeah, I really think I could be very compassionate about this, because I've I've kind of been there on the other side of the couch quite a few times.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. That's a very interesting story there. I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, it felt like it was synchronicity. It felt
Mhm.
like right. And I felt ready for that, and I loved it. And I obviously loved the training. I did the training. I hit the ground running. I started seeing clients straight away. I was still working part-time as a marketing consultant. So for the first year, I had a kind of foot in both camps. And then at the end of that year, I just thought, no, I feel like a therapist. And I trained in coaching at that time. And I was getting great results. And, there's nothing like changing people's lives and freeing them from that pain. And I was very empathetic, because people would sit down opposite me and they'd say, oh, I don't know where to start. And I'd say, try me. you know, and I go, oh, let me tell you about when I was on antidepressants, or let me tell you about my 2 divorces, or, not that I was telling them about me, but I was able to create rapport because I'd walked their path.
Mhm.
So I did find it made me a very compassionate and empathetic therapist, and also because I'm a communicator and my background is marketing and PR, so you understand people, you understand how to communicate with people. I found that was a phenomenal transferable skill into the world of coaching and therapy.
Yeah, that's awesome, awesome. So how did I guess the question becomes yeah, with the skills of PR and marketing, did that really help out quite a bit with your coaching business?
Yeah, so there's an article that you can see on my website where I was interviewed by Psychology and Practice magazine, and it's called How I Got Here. And everybody else they'd interviewed were like doctor this and doctor that, and they had a very traditional route up to becoming a psychiatrist or psychotherapist or whatever. And then there's me, and I sort of almost jokingly refer to myself as the accidental therapist. It's like, if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, I'd have said, oh, okay, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think there's some really great transferable skills. I mean, for a start, I'm able to run a business. I'm used to being a solopreneur and to that world of business. So none of that fazed me, which meant I could really focus on the clients. I didn't get held back by a mindset that made it difficult for me to run my business or build my business. Communication is key. So not only do I communicate well with the clients, and of course, hypnotherapy and coaching, you're communicating, you're talking. Now, particularly because all my sessions are happening on Zoom, it's really important to be able to have that rapport and to hear that language, the NLP, the kind of language pattern. So all of that just was great grounding for me. And obviously marketing and PR really is about understanding human behavior and influencing behavior. And obviously working with the client, we want to create or influence a better outcome in their world. And so all of that was amazingly transferable, and who'd have known? But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
transferable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. So what's that vision that you have and you're working towards in your company at the moment?
So interestingly, I took the whole of January off and went to Florida to stay with friends, because I had determined that nearly all of my business was on Zoom, and I wanted to create more of an online presence and online courses. And then I come back and the world went crazy.
Hmm.
So I'm still working on a lot of that. I've got a couple of online courses now, but I'm now developing a podcast series. My
Hmm.
go-to for the very kind of stressed out, burnt out CEOs, burnt out Barbara, burnt out Bob, as I like to call them,
Yeah.
because that was me. I was that woman who looked like she had it all going on. I had the 8-bedroom house in London. I even flew Concorde. I moved to the Bahamas at 40 going, hey, yeah, look at me. No. But I get what that life looks like behind, behind the glossy magazine. I've worked with royalty, I've worked with celebrities, I came up through the 80s working for the leading PR company. The TV series The Absolutely Fabulous is based on. I worked there. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I was the PR for the Rolling Stones and Ronnie Wood's art exhibition, so I've been around those worlds, those gated communities, those celebrity lifestyles, those successful CEOs, and I also know what goes on behind the scenes. So more and more I want to talk to those people. So my future is very much podcasting to those people. I'm going to have more books that will be aimed at those. Obviously my first book, and I've now had 3 subsequent Amazon bestsellers in the Ignite series. So Ignite Your Life for Women, Ignite Your Female Leadership, and Ignite for Change Makers. So I want to really communicate to those people. So that's really where the future of my business and my positioning is going.
Awesome. Love it. And with your podcast, did you say you already started it, or are you in the process of getting it started?
I've got my first 3 episodes under my belt, but it's not going to go live till September. It's called Monkey Business. So it's about the monkey mind, the chimp mind, but in business. So it's if you think about something like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, what's behind the habit? What's the mindset behind the habit? What's the thinking when things are going well in the boardroom? What's the thinking when it's a car crash and it's not going well? How do you get through those difficult times, difficult meetings? So that's what the podcast's about. And I think that's of great value to business people, because they want to know how other business people think. So yeah, I'm just in the process of getting my first 6 episodes ready, and it will be launching in mid-September.
Awesome. Is it a solo podcast, or do you have guests on there? What's the structure?
Guest-based podcast, so it's me and a guest, and the guests are I've got the kind of guests I'm having to go through their publicists for, so I know they're important. It's like talk to my publicity department. So okay, we're talking like one of them is Andrea Gondachova, and she is the CEO of the whole of Philip Morris across Eastern Europe. I've got Banda Goldbag, and she is a non-executive for like the Performing Rights Association. She was the former MD of Air Miles, part of BA. So the people I'm interviewing, ironically, they're all women at the moment, but I want it to be women and men. They are those people who I really want to know their mindset, what's got them through the hard times, when have they had to walk away, when have they nearly, crashed and burned, and it's really that mindset behind their business success. So, but I've actually got another podcast coming out called Visible Women as well, and that's with a friend, and that's much more chatty. That's much more a kind of 2 women having a conversation together. Because women, there's a great book called Invisible Women, and women in their kind of late 40s, 50s, society tends to start to make them invisible. Really, take an actor, he'll be 55 and his TV wife will be like 35, and suddenly these women kind of disappear. I remember Goldie Hawn said that in Hollywood, you go from Babe to Driving Miss Daisy. I think now there are more roles in between, but I think, the kind of middle-aged, 40, 50 something women, they're very, like so many people, they're not heard often, and they're underrepresented, on the boards of companies all over the place. So I want to give that woman a voice as well.
Awesome. So that's that second podcast. When's that one airing? When are you guys going to start that one?
That one is also coming out mid-September. We have a very big syndicated radio station in England that is hopefully going to option it. So if they do, it's going to be like really cool. So yeah, this is very exciting. I do a radio show called Girls Around Town, which is on my local radio station on a Sunday morning. And I'm the emotional well-being correspondent. So I have guests on that. So I want to make emotional well-being and all of these issues like the monkey brain understandable to people. I think you talked about transferable skills. One of the skills I bought from my background in high-level PR and marketing is making quite complicated things quite simple,
Mm-hmm.
and understandable. And I think a lot of therapy and obviously the world I now live in, and coaching, absolutely. You know, what is coaching going to do for me? Where is it going to take me? What life is it going to enable me to have? You know, I'm all about making that understandable to the most people as possible.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, pretty cool stuff. Cool stuff. What about education and stuff? Are you pretty big into reading books, podcasts, audiobooks? Well, how do you get your updated current information?
Why? Oh, I'm like a sponge. I mean, I the biggest thing I have to do is say no and, you know, switch off and go to bed. It'll be like, oh, just one more podcast. I mean, obviously, you know, things like Eckhart Tolle and epigenetics, and I'm a big fan of Dr. Mark Hyman, you know, all the kind of leading thinkers and podcasters and broadcasters, you know, in those worlds. I've invested a lot of money in myself over the last 4 or 5 years. I went to A-Fest. I went to several. I went to one on love and relationships and one on longevity, where you sit down and learn from the world's greatest thinkers on these topics. And then I'll watch what they're doing on YouTube, etc. So yeah, I'll never, you know, until I'm 6 feet under, I won't stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always, I always want to know. But I like to learn other things as well. And I think it's really good to have a balance. So I'm in a relationship. So after 2 marriages and in my 50s, I have found love. And that in itself has been interesting, you know, online dating, doing something very unfamiliar. And I've written about it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm about to move to live with my partner, and he's effectively got a small holding. So at the moment, I go to bed reading books about sheep and chickens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning how to keep sheep. I'm learning how to keep chickens. You know, I'm loving it, and it's quite a nice counterbalance to some of that more cerebral stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exciting stuff. Love it. Okay, good. So what about so I guess how would you sum up if you had to take sum up your life, right? So where you are today based on all your experiences, what's one sentence you could use to sum up your life and where you are today?
Well, 2 sentences. I'm going to cheat.
Mm-hmm.
So one is a bracelet I have that says, all I need is already within me. So trust in that inner intuition, that inner fire, that inner steel, those inner values. Be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
100. I've walked some very dark times, and that faith in yourself is 100%. And then the other core philosophy I have is a life of balance is 5 F's. You have 5 fingers. You need faith, you need family, you need friends, you need finance, and you need fitness. So you need faith in a God or something beyond yourself, or nature, or just yourself. You need family. It doesn't have to be your birth family, but a tribe. You need people around you. You need friends. You need that connection. We are connected beings. You need finance. Money is good. It's a force for good. Pay it forward. Let it flow. And you need fitness, body and mind. And I paid the price when the cancer came, that I thought this was fine, but this wasn't. So that connection between the two, mind controls the body, body controls the mind. And I live by that mantra. And when you get out of balance, it's when 1 or 2 of those is not being addressed.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Pretty cool stuff. Cool stuff. And what would you say over your years is one skill that you've really practiced that's got you to your level of success that you've created for yourself today?
I think I take people as I find them, and what you see is what you get with me as well. So I'm a girl who grew up above a grocer's shop, and the shop was pulled down for slum clearance when I was 4. I went to a massive public school. I didn't go to the right university. And yet I felt very comfortable with royalty and celebrities because I take everybody as I find them. We are all human beings. And I never judge, I never prejudge, and I take everybody as I find them, and I look for the best in them. And maybe that's a really lovely skill to have.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Love it, Rosalind. Well, hey, if someone wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
My website, so www.rosalindpalmer.com. So that's ROSALYNPALMER.com. I've got lots of freebies on there, free hypnotic downloads and workbooks and all sorts. I do a regular blog, and there's just lots of information there. You can get signed copies of my book, PDFs of it. I'm all over social media. Just put in Rosalind Palmer and you'll probably find me, but the website will be the best place.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And guys, the link to connect back to Rosalind, they should be either above or below the video. Excuse me. So you could click on the link and get connected right to her. Well, hey, Rosalind, hey, thank you so much for making the time to be here and share your story with us here today. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
No, I do really, again, the 5 F's: faith, fitness, friends, family, and finance. Keep that balance. You need the balance. Think every day, am I addressing one of them? And that will give you a life of balance, and that will give you a life of joy. And really, thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show. I love what you're doing.
Awesome. It was a pleasure having you here, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Blessings. Bye.
Bye.